In the labyrinthine concrete jungle of New York City, where millions move with a hurried anonymity, some disappearances cut deeper than others. They leave a gaping void not just in families, but in the very fabric of the city's memory, a phantom limb that aches with every passing year. This is the chilling story of one such void, a haunting testament to time's slow, relentless grind and the enduring, corrosive ache of the unknown. A patrol car, a metallic sentinel of law and order, swallowed by the murky depths for 16 agonizing years, held secrets the city never truly forgot, and a police officer, lost to the unforgiving night, became an enduring ghost of the urban sprawl. Her fate, a riddle wrapped in an enigma, continues to whisper through the city's dark waterways, a somber melody of what was and what might have been. October 1979. New York City, a behemoth of aspiration and despair, hummed with a raw, restless energy. The pulsating beat of disco still reverberated through neon-lit clubs, but beneath the superficial glitter, the city's heart was bruised by the lingering tremors of economic downturn, a palpable surge in crime rates, and a simmering tension that permeated its 5 diverse boroughs. It was a city of gritty resilience and boundless ambition, and amidst its chaotic, vibrant symphony, Officer Sarah Jenkins, starched uniform and all, found her challenging rhythm. 24 years old, with sharp, observant eyes that seemed to miss nothing, and a determined set to her jaw that spoke of an unyielding spirit, Sarah was a quiet anomaly in the sprawling, traditionally male-dominated ranks of the New York Police Department. She joined the force in 1976, part of an intrepid vanguard, one of the initial, larger waves of female officers who were finally given the opportunity to hit the streets, to prove their mettle in a world that had, for too long, deemed it no place for a woman. She'd chosen the 114th Precinct in Astoria, Queens, a sprawling, diverse, and perpetually bustling district where the fragrant steam of Greek diners mingled with the robust laughter spilling from Irish pubs, and generations of working-class families lived side by side with burgeoning artist communities seeking cheaper rents and authentic streetscapes. Sarah wasn't merely a uniform, she was an established, respected presence. The boisterous kids playing stickball on the asphalt of Ditmer's Boulevard knew her by name. The stoic shop owners along Steinway Street, wary of outsiders, trusted her implicitly with their concerns. She walked her assigned beat, her heavy-duty belt with its necessary accoutrements, the sidearm, the nightstick, the bulky radio, a familiar, weighty presence on her hip, her confident stride speaking volumes. She possessed a no-nonsense demeanor, honed by the daily realities of street policing, but beneath that pragmatic exterior lay a deep, accessible well of empathy and an unwavering sense of justice. She hadn't joined the force for power, nor for the thrill, but out of a fierce, almost visceral desire to protect the vulnerable, to untangle the often complex threads of human conflict, and to bring a measure of order to the pervasive chaos she observed around her. Her widowed mother, Evelyn, a woman of quiet strength but perpetual anxieties, had initially voiced profound reservations. "It's no job for a woman, Sarah, not with all the dangers," she'd often lamented, her voice thick with genuine maternal concern, though an undeniable flicker of fierce pride always glimmered in her weary eyes. Sarah's younger sister, Emily, then a lively, inquisitive 10-year-old with a perpetually curious gaze, looked up to her like a real-life superhero, often attempting to mimic her sister's purposeful gait around their small home. Sarah lived with Evelyn and Emily in a modest, well-kept row house in Woodside, just a few convenient stops away on the noisy, rattling elevated N train, a constant, tangible reminder of the ordinary lives she swore to protect and serve. She was also in a committed relationship with Mark, a fellow officer from the adjacent 108th Precinct in Long Island City. Their relationship, built on shared understanding and the unique, unspoken pressures only a cop could truly comprehend, was a quiet, indispensable anchor in the demanding, often turbulent currents of their high-stakes careers. They understood the long hours, the sudden calls, the quiet anxieties that came with the badge. Sarah often spoke to Mark about her aspirations beyond patrol, perhaps detective work, a path less traveled for women in the NYPD then, but one she was determined to forge. October 28, 1979, a Sunday night, the capricious New York weather had taken a turn. The air was thick with the chilling, damp breath of impending winter, a biting cold carried on a persistent, almost mournful drizzle that seemed to seep into everything. Sarah had drawn the undesirable late shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., assigned to patrol car 114-17. Her usual partner for the night was out sick with the flu, so she was riding solo, a common enough occurrence for experienced officers, but one that always left a subtle, unsettling unease in the pit of her stomach, a feeling of heightened vulnerability. Around 1:30 a.m., a call, distorted by the static of an old-school police radio, crackled over the airwaves, a possible breaking and entering at an abandoned warehouse on the waterfront. The location was vague. Vernon Boulevard, near the old Pepsi-Cola sign. This was a notoriously desolate stretch in Long Island City, miles from the lively commercial arteries of Steinway Street or the residential bustle of Ditmars Boulevard. The dispatch operator's voice was flat, professional, but the message carried an unspoken caution. Proceed with caution, 140-17, report your findings, Sarah acknowledged without hesitation. 10-4 dispatch, heading to Vernon Boulevard, ETA 10 minutes. Her voice, as always, was calm, collected, the epitome of professional composure. It was the last time the 114th Precinct, or anyone connected to her, would ever hear it. She steered her 1977 Plymouth Fury, a sturdy, no-nonsense patrol vehicle, its V8 engine a low, comforting growl, through the rain-slicked, dimly lit streets. The warehouse district was a disorienting warren of crumbling brick buildings, narrow, grimy alleys, and the skeletal remains of forgotten industrial dreams. Streetlights here were sparse, their feeble glows swallowed by the vast darkness, casting long, distorted shadows that danced eerily with the relentless rain. She pulled up to the location, the only immediate sounds the rhythmic, hypnotic sweep of her wipers and the distant, almost ghostly hum of traffic crossing the Triborough Bridge. The designated warehouse loomed, a monolithic shadow against the bruised, overcast sky. Its grimy windows were like broken teeth, its rusted, oversized loading doors sealed shut with heavy padlocks. No obvious sign of forced entry, nothing immediately out of the ordinary, no light, no movement. She picked up her radio, preparing to report. Dispatch 114-17, negative on any activity here. Appears to be an empty call. She was about to put the car in reverse, her hand already hovering over the gear shift, when a faint, metallic clang, muffled but distinct, echoed from deeper within the sprawling complex. It seemed to come from beyond the main warehouse, closer to the dilapidated piers that jutted out into the dark, churning expanse of the East River. It was barely audible above the drumming of the rain on the roof of her cruiser, easily dismissed as wind rattling loose corrugated metal. But Sarah, ever the diligent, meticulous officer, paused. Her instincts, honed by 3 years of navigating the unpredictability of street policing, told her something was amiss. That faint clang, almost an invitation, pricked at her professional intuition. Dispatch 140-17, possible secondary location, investigating further. Hold my position. She didn't wait for a reply, a subtle deviation from protocol for solo officers, but one driven by a cautious, undeniable curiosity. It was standard procedure to report every movement, but in that moment she made a snap decision to check it out immediately. She drove the patrol car slowly around to the rear of the main warehouse, navigating a narrow, unpaved lane choked with stubborn weeds and discarded, waterlogged debris. The river, a vast, dark, churning mass, stretched out beyond the decrepit docks, reflecting the sparse, scattered city lights like fragmented, scattered gems. The clang came again, closer this time, more distinct, sounding like metal dragging on concrete or a heavy object being moved. She switched off her engine, the sudden, oppressive silence amplifying the relentless drumming of the rain. She grabbed her heavy-duty flashlight from its charging cradle, its beam a stark, yellow-white sword in the suffocating darkness, and stepped out. The cold, insistent rain lashed against her face. She closed the car door softly behind her, the latch clicking with a quiet finality that, in retrospect, would become chilling. The precinct grew uncharacteristically quiet as the small hours of the morning ticked by. Dispatch tried to raise 140-17 around 2:15 a.m. for a minor fender bender on 31st Street. No answer. They tried again, a growing tension in the operator's voice, and again. The silence that followed each unanswered call was louder, more ominous than any static. By 2:45 a.m., Sergeant Miller, a grizzled veteran whose face was a roadmap of too many grim discoveries, felt a cold, tightening knot of dread form in his gut. "Where's Jenkins?" he barked, his voice laced with an undeniable urgency that rippled through the already tense precinct house, raising the hackles of every officer on duty. A patrol car 140-19 was immediately dispatched to her last known location, lights flashing, siren wailing. They found Sarah Jenkins' patrol car, 140-17, within minutes. It was parked almost artfully, neatly behind the abandoned warehouse on Vernon Boulevard, facing the river, its nose pointed towards the treacherous water. Its engine was cold, its interior rapidly cooling in the damp night air. The driver's side door was unlocked, slightly ajar, almost as if she'd just stepped out for a moment. The keys, a shiny, damning testament to her abrupt departure, were still in the ignition. Her official NYPD cap, a dark blue with the department's gold insignia, lay on the dashboard, seemingly tossed there without a care. Her heavy-duty flashlight, her last beacon of light in the darkness, was gone. There were no immediate signs of a struggle around the car, no broken glass, no spent casings, no scuff marks on the wet asphalt, nothing whatsoever to indicate a violent confrontation. It was as if she had simply, inexplicably, stepped out into the wet, echoing night and vanished without a trace, a spectral vanishing act. The alarm was immediate and absolute, a siren wailing through the veins of the NYPD. A full-scale search was launched, unprecedented in its scope for a missing officer. Dozens of officers from every available precinct were pulled onto the streets. 9 units, their keen noses pressed to the rain-soaked ground, scoured every inch of the warehouse, the labyrinthine network of piers, the surrounding blocks, and every desolate alleyway. Marine units, their specialized boats equipped with sonar, began the painstaking process of dragging the murky, treacherous depths of the East River. Helicopters, their powerful searchlights slicing through the pre-dawn gloom and the persistent drizzle, crisscrossed the area from above, painting fleeting paths of light on the darkened cityscape. They interviewed the few homeless individuals who sheltered in the area, their eyes wide with fear or evasiveness. The bleary-eyed night watchmen at nearby businesses, the early shift workers making their way to the docks. No one, absolutely no one, had seen anything. The river itself, an indifferent, churning beast, yielded nothing but cold, dark water and debris. Her mother, Evelyn, a woman already stooped by the weight of widowhood, received the devastating news just after sunrise, delivered by 2 grim-faced officers at her doorstep. Her face, usually etched with gentle maternal lines, crumpled instantly into a mask of disbelieving agony. Emily, still sleepy-eyed in her nightgown, couldn't possibly comprehend why her strong, brave older sister wasn't home, why the familiar, comforting sounds of Sarah's morning routine were absent. Mark, Sarah's boyfriend, arrived at the precinct, his face ashen, unable to process the unthinkable news. He'd worked the evening shift and was just getting home when the urgent, chilling call came. He immediately joined the desperate search, a frantic, almost unhinged figure, tearing through the rain-soaked alleys, his voice hoarse with a raw grief he couldn't yet acknowledge, screaming Sarah's name into the unresponsive void. The investigation quickly devolved into a frustrating series of dead ends. There were no credible witnesses who saw anything beyond Sarah's car. There were no ransom demands, no cryptic notes, no taunting phone calls. Without a body, without a suspect, without a single tangible clue beyond the abandoned patrol car and the haunting void she left behind, the efforts of the dedicated task force became a frustrating, soul-crushing exercise in chasing ghosts. The warehouse, despite being thoroughly processed by forensics, offered little. The persistent rain had mercilessly washed away any potential trace evidence: fingerprints, fibers, footprints, leaving behind only mud. The ground, a squelching, indiscernible mess, offered no discernible footprints other than the heavy, methodical prints of police boots. The river, a vast, impenetrable enigma, offered an endless array of possibilities but no answers. Divers, battling strong, treacherous currents, near-zero visibility and the chilling cold, searched the murky depths for days, then weeks, finding only sunken barges, discarded tires, and the ubiquitous detritus of a busy port city. Officer Sarah Jenkins, it seemed, had simply vanished, swallowed whole by the urban maw. The case became a sensational media spectacle for weeks, screaming across every newspaper and television channel. The vanishing officer of Queens, NYPD cop disappears. Headlines screamed, television reports speculated wildly, often fueled by desperate, unverified rumors. But as days bled into weeks and weeks into agonizing months, the initial fervor cooled, replaced by a resigned weariness. The NYPD, under immense public and internal pressure, assigned a dedicated cold case task force, but without a body, without a suspect, without a single tangible clue, their efforts became an exercise in grinding futility. They re-interviewed everyone remotely connected to the case, ran exhaustive background checks on Sarah, her known associates, and anyone who had been in the area. They followed up on every whisper, every anonymous tip, every outlandish rumor. Nothing stuck, every lead dissolved into nothing. For Evelyn, Sarah's mother, the years that followed were a living purgatory, a slow, torturous torment. She refused to move from their woodside home, refused to change anything in Sarah's meticulously kept bedroom, keeping it a sacred shrine, perpetually ready for a return that never came. Her life became an endless, desperate cycle of contacting the precinct, poring over dusty newspaper archives, and clinging to the faintest flicker of hope, which would inevitably be extinguished by the cruel reality of silence. Emily, Sarah's younger sister, grew up in the pervasive shadow of her sister's agonizing absence, transforming from a lively, inquisitive child into a quiet, watchful girl, always feeling the unspoken sorrow that hung heavy and suffocating in their once vibrant home. Mark, too, was profoundly haunted. He transferred precincts, couldn't bear to patrol the same streets where Sarah had vanished, but the memory of her, and the gnawing guilt of not having been with her that night, a protective instinct he couldn't act on, never left him. He kept in regular contact with Evelyn, visiting occasionally, a silent pillar of shared grief, but the immense, crushing weight of the unsolved mystery pressed down on them all, twisting their lives into shapes they never anticipated. The NYPD, to its credit, officially kept the case open, but it functionally went cold, relegated to a thick, dusty file in a forgotten cabinet, an aching, chilling reminder of an unsolved puzzle that mocked their best efforts. The city, ever dynamic and relentless, moved on. The roaring, materialistic 1980s bled into the grunge-fueled early 1990s. The gritty urban landscape transformed, old industries faded into rust and memory, new towers of glass and steel rose aggressively against the skyline, symbolizing a new era of prosperity, but the East River remained, a silent, impassive, dark witness to the relentless passage of time and the profound secrets it held within its murky depths. Development shifted, priorities changed, but the river, ancient and indifferent, flowed on. Spring 1995. 16 years, 5 months, and 20 days had passed since Officer Sarah Jenkins vanished into the inky blackness of that October night. The biting chill of October 1979 was a distant, almost forgotten memory, replaced now by the burgeoning warmth and nascent hope of a New York spring. The city was undergoing another significant metamorphosis, with ambitious, large-scale development projects planned for its extensive, often neglected waterfronts. One such ambitious undertaking involved a deep dredging operation near Hunters Point, Long Island City, a rapidly gentrifying area just a few miles south of where Sarah's car was last seen, but close enough for the powerful, unpredictable river currents to have played a significant, perhaps fatal, role. Giant excavators, their massive steel claws looking like prehistoric beasts, began to claw methodically at the riverbed, scooping up tons of primordial silt, thick, black mud, and ancient refuse that had accumulated at the bottom of the East River for decades, even centuries. On April 17, 1995, a seasoned crane operator named Frank Malone, his face weathered by years of sun and wind, was carefully moving a particularly heavy scoop of thick, resistant muck when he felt an unusual grating resistance, a weight unlike any he'd encountered. As the enormous bucket slowly, laboriously rose from the churning, muddy water, dripping with the river's dark essence, a large, dark, barnacle-encrusted shape emerged, vaguely familiar, yet alien and grotesque in its encrusted, distorted state. It was undeniably a vehicle, its outlines blurred by years of aquatic torment. As it finally cleared the surface, rotating slowly in the grip of the crane, the unmistakable contours of a 1970s-era NYPD patrol car became chillingly, terrifyingly clear. Its once vibrant paint, the familiar NYPD blue and white, was now a ghostly, mottled gray-green, adorned with thick, calcified layers of marine growth barnacles, mussels, and river weeds clinging stubbornly to its rusted metal skin. The distinctive light bar on the roof was bent and severely rusted, a broken spine. The unit number, barely visible through the thick grime and aquatic debris, was 140-17. The sight sent a cold, clinical shockwave through the entire operation. The discovery sent an immediate, visceral jolt through the entire city, and especially through the hardened ranks of the NYPD, from the newest recruit to the commissioner himself. Police divers, their faces grim and determined, were immediately called to the scene. The car was carefully, meticulously brought ashore, its ancient metal groaning and creaking, protesting loudly as it met the fresh air after 16 years of crushing submersion. It was a macabre spectacle, a grotesque, barnacle-laden time capsule of a tragedy that had haunted them for so long. The original investigators, many of whom had carried the unspoken weight of the cold case for years, their faces etched with the passage of time, gathered around the mangled, aquatic vehicle with a grim, almost reverent silence. The front passenger window was completely shattered, its glass long gone, presumably dissolved or swept away by the current. The driver's side door was ajar, the lock mechanism corroded and utterly non-functional, seemingly frozen in its open position. Inside, the interior was a sodden, silt-filled ruin, a ghastly underwater mausoleum. The once padded seats had completely disintegrated, leaving only twisted metal frames. The steering wheel was a skeletal frame of rust. And then in the driver's side footwell, partially buried in the thick, clinging river sediment, they found it. A police-issue duty belt, its heavy leather rotten and discolored, but the familiar gleam of a tarnished, corroded brass badge still discernible. Sarah Jenkins badge, number 7834. And next to it, still somewhat protected by the holster, the unmistakable form of her standard-issue service revolver, though rusted beyond immediate recognition, its once formidable power reduced to a mere relic. But there was no body. No skeletal remains, just the car and the few, haunting personal effects that deepened the agonizing riddle. The discovery brought no genuine closure, only a renewed, agonizing question that screamed silently from the car's broken shell. What in God's name happened to Officer Sarah Jenkins? The recovered car was meticulously, painstakingly examined by forensic specialists. The science, now vastly more advanced than in 1979, went to work. They found no bullet holes in the remaining metalwork, no obvious signs of a violent struggle within the submerged cabin, no blood, no definitive fingerprints. The car's transmission was in neutral. The emergency brake was disengaged. This chilling combination strongly suggested the car had either rolled into the river by accident or, more disturbingly, been deliberately pushed. But how, and by whom? If Sarah had been forced into the river with it, why were there no remains inside, given the contained nature of the vehicle? If she had managed to escape before it submerged, where did she go? Why leave her badge and weapon? The cold case, now lukewarm, was officially reopened, a bureaucratic necessity that offered little comfort. Old, dusty files were pulled from their forgotten cabinets, their brittle pages filled with faded ink and unanswered questions. New interviews were conducted with anyone who remembered the original investigation, retired officers, aging witnesses, even the former precinct captain. Evelyn, Sarah's mother, now frail but still possessing an unyielding core of maternal strength, was interviewed again, her pain renewed, her hope cruelly reignited only to be dashed by the frustrating, agonizing lack of her daughter's body. Emily, now a woman in her mid-20s, a promising law student, finally understood the full, chilling weight of the mystery that had defined her entire childhood, turning it into a living, breathing shadow. Mark, now a seasoned detective with a distinguished career, found himself revisiting the case that had, in so many ways, shaped his own life and professional trajectory. He brought all his hard-won experience and methodical training to bear, but the new evidence, or perhaps more accurately, the poignant lack thereof, offered little more than the old, inconclusive findings. The prevailing theory among investigators, evolving with the new information, shifted. The car in neutral, the open door, the presence of her duty belt and weapon, suggested that Sarah had exited the vehicle, perhaps to confront someone or something, on the pier or near the water's edge. Then the car had entered the water separately, perhaps pushed in as a means to destroy evidence or as a macabre distraction. But if so, who pushed it in, and what then became of Sarah? Was she attacked on the pier and her body disposed of elsewhere in the vast river, perhaps carried out to sea by powerful tidal currents, or deliberately taken to a hidden grave? Was she abducted? The questions piled up, each one heavier than the last, echoing the unanswered cries of 1979. Years passed again. The renewed investigation, despite the dramatic 1995 discovery, yielded no definitive answers about Sarah's ultimate fate. The East River, an indifferent, eternal guardian of untold secrets, offered up only a rusted, empty shell. Sarah Jenkins became a permanent fixture in the NYPD's cold case files, a spectral presence in the department's long, storied history, a somber legend whispered among new recruits, a cautionary tale of the city's dark underbelly. Her tarnished badge, painstakingly cleaned, preserved, and encased, became a potent symbol of the enduring mysteries that haunt even the most dedicated investigators, a silent monument to a life cut tragically short and a truth forever obscured. Evelyn, Sarah's mother, passed away quietly a few years later, her heart broken beyond repair, her final, desperate wish for answers remaining ungranted. Emily, now a successful lawyer, became the torchbearer of her sister's memory, never ceasing her quiet, tenacious search for truth, a quiet crusade that consumed her. Mark, having honorably retired from the force, a decorated veteran, often found himself staring out at the restless expanse of the East River, the setting sun glinting off its dark surface, wondering what secrets its churning depths still held, what relentless currents had carried Sarah away, not just from her vehicle, but from the lives of those who loved her so fiercely. The East River continued its relentless, indifferent flow, its dark waters holding the ultimate, unyielding truth of Officer Sarah Jenkins vanishing, a truth it guarded with unwavering, profound silence, a silence as haunting and chilling as the day she disappeared into the long, dark night of October 1979. The car was found, but the woman was still lost, an eternal, agonizing question mark etched permanently into the enduring, often unforgiving, soul of New York City.